Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining DataCon LA 2021. Welcome to the Data for Good track. My name is Eli, your host, and our co-host today is Murali. We will be moderating the chat and QA for you during the session, and there are going to be two polls that you'll take throughout the presentation. Today, we have our guest, Keerthi, who will be presenting Enjoy the Air. Keerthi is a product strategist at Enjoy the Air. Results-focused software engineer turned product enthusiast, Keerthi loves starting from the ground up and building game-changing products that are at the cusp of technology and business. Over 14 years of experience with defining and launching successful products, she is passionate about sustainability, reducing carbon footprint, and focusing on driving connections at the intersection of science, business, technology, and sustainability by unfolding data stories one at a time. Without further ado, I'll hand this over to the speaker. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Eli. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic and act as if the house was on fire. Do you remember whose words were these? And please feel to type them in the chat window. If not all, I know some of you might have heard her speech in the UN Climate Summit Action. Greta Thunberg is a teen climate activist who lambasted the world leaders and reminded that you are failing us. She said, I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic and act as if the house was on fire. I welcome you all to the session. Enjoy the air. A community voice. Make your voice heard on climate actions.
Oh, I think you might be sharing, right now we're just seeing the I don't want to be hopeful slide. Is that the correct slide we're supposed to be seeing?
No, I'm in this screen. I'm in the, I think something about it. Is it working right now?
So I see the Keerthi slide and the community.
It seems like the screen share mode is not, the full screen is not working.
You might have to unshare and then share again as full screen.
Let me.
Sorry to interrupt. I want your presentation. I want to.
Let me know if you're seeing it in full screen mode.
No, we're not seeing it in full screen.
Is it full screen now?
No.
Nope. We just see your PDF.
What? I mean, it's fine to go from the PDF, but I wish there was a way that I could. If let's see. Which browser are you using? Oh, that looks better. That looks much. Yeah.
I pulled out in the read mode. Hope that helps.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So let me give you all a brief, and that was the technical glitch which we always expect in any session. Thanks for being understanding. And let me give you all a brief introduction about me. I'm Keerthi Gopalakrishnan, a software engineer turned product enthusiast and a passionate sustainability advocate. Loves most things at the intersection of sustainability, product engineering, and business. And currently I'm a consultant product strategist at Enjoy the Air. And when I'm not involved in conversations to bring sustainable decision to businesses and customers, you can see me busy learning with my 2-year-old, doing gardening or yoga. Let me ask everyone present here a question, which the poll Eli has helped me to set it up. Imagine you had the power to change. Which one of these do you think is least sustainable and a must change for a climate secure planet? Feel free to type your poll in the power to change. It's interesting always to see how the crowd replies. So A, the built environment. B, packaged consumer goods. C, your mobility choices. D, recreation, sports, hobbies, vacations. And E, other. I see a greater trend on the mobility choices. And I'm hoping that this would be now a meaningful conversations for you. So today, for this presentation, I'll start with the problem at the hand, followed by the Glasgow case study, followed by who we are at ETA, followed by the Glasgow case study, the Glasgow pattern, and ETA insights. Let me start with the problem. We all have seen some version of this graph that shows each of the last 4 decades has been successively warmer than any decade that preceded it since 1850. This is per IPCC stats. The projected future global warming levels could be anywhere between 1.5 to 4 degrees Celsius unless an evasive action to reduce the mixed GHG and CO2 are taken place. Will human be extinct by 2026? The heading would scare you, but a group of prominent climate scientists offer compelling climate science evidence that the global temperature rise, both in land and ocean, of more than 18.43 Celsius is just a matter of years. By as early as 2026, it could lead to a number of climate-related global deaths. However, there is no consensus regarding the same among the mainstream climate scientists. But we will be getting the answer to all in the IPCC Report 6, which is IPCC's 6th assessment report, the latest set of IPCC report that assesses the scientific knowledge on climate change, including our past, present, and future climate, its impact and future risk, and options of adaptation and mitigation. This is the most ambitious schedule they have so far. But one thing that all of them would agree is 97%, that is the 97% of 10,000 climate scientists and various scientific organizations engaged in climate science research, that human beings have caused a dramatic increase in the amount of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide released into Earth's atmosphere since the pre-industrial era, and that this is the driving climate catastrophe that continues to unfold. The concentration of GHG in Earth's atmosphere is directly linked to the average global temperature on Earth. The concentration has been rising steadily, and the mean global temperature along with it, since the time of Industrial Revolution. The most abundant GHG, accounting for about 2/3 of GHG, is carbon dioxide and is largely a product of burning fossil fuels. Climate change is the defining issue of our time, and we are at the defining moment. From shifting weather patterns that threaten the food production to extreme weather events to rising sea level that increase the risk of catastrophic flooding, the impact of climate change are global in scope and unprecedented in scale. Without any drastic action today, adapting to these impacts in the future will be more difficult and really costly to all. Based on a recent survey from EIB Climate Survey, 81% of Americans and 93% of Europeans have the intention to buy fewer plastic products. Similarly, 66% of Americans have the intention to invest in greener economies, like 76% of Europeans have the same intention. The catch is, there are so many stats and multiple surveys showing that people have the intention to make certain decisions based on the climate change, be it mobility choices, energy consumption, given them the power to change, which you yourself can see based on the poll responses we got. That if you have the power to change, you have the intention to make such changes. Even though we see the intention, we notice that there is an intention-action gap. The obvious question here would be, is there an information deficit on the importance of climate change? But the answer to that is no. There is so much of media and knowledge base out there showcasing the importance of climate security. But other than protests, there is very less feedback loop for people to see the change in the behavior required and the baby steps of progress that happens as a result. But we are at this juncture that baby steps will not be enough. We need to take a leap forward, kind of like a paradigm shift. What we need is to create multiple feedback loops in the system, which provides people to make climate conscious decisions and also provide them a way to see the impact. At Enjoy the Air, we are all about creating this free feedback loop to empower the citizens' ladder of participation. ETA, we are a limited corporation based out of Glasgow, Scotland, on climate. We are focusing on the climate security in urban environment. ETA helps to mobilize and accelerate the behavioral change needed while creating a cultural shift. We help this journey by connecting the dots for businesses to achieve their green targets and reporting, identifying the green investments, and providing channels for citizens to exercise their conscious decisions. Our plan is to start simple, start with the transport sector, a service we all use. Understand the cultural shift for people to avoid congestion, air pollution, and the other challenges. Businesses and policymakers who want to know more about how to create a feedback loop in your urban community are welcome to reach out to us for a discovery of it. Now, why air? Why air in the Enjoy the Air? Why did we focus on the air and not the planet? Air impacts many threats, drivers, and pressures, as you see in this picture. One of ETA's key metrics for climate security is an equal right to clean air for all. As a natural system under stress, air impacts not only our quality of life, but biodiversity and as well as the social equality. Cleaning the air has positive benefits for health, economy, social inclusion. We want ETA to make a difference and make up for the lack of regard for environment in polluting sectors, something many of us have experienced throughout. Why the focus on urban environment? Cities are at the greatest risk of climate disaster and poor air quality. More than half the world's population live in cities. Urban areas are engines of economic growth and innovation, but also a huge consumer of resources. How cities are designed and governed affects the quality of life of billions of people. Over the next 30 years, 2.5 billion people and as many as 1 million more vehicles will be added to urban centers. 3/4 of the infrastructure that will exist in cities by 2050 is yet to be built. Cities are at this critical inflection point that the decisions made today will determine whether we continue on the path of a fractured, unsafe, polluting growth, or we'll be succeeding on a more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive future. Based on how we take actions today, it'll decide if 2026 would be a real tipping point or not. Knowing this, ETA, along with University of Strathclyde, are conducting a case study and research findings will be announced at UN COP26 on November 2021. Under leader Councillor Susan Atiki of Glasgow City, Glasgow City is a center of climate innovation globally, green infrastructure, and financing sustainable climate adaptations. ETA's global growth is helping cities to measure the cultural influences over the everyday services like transport and personal consumption by citizens and for clean air and climate security. As a part of this research, we are trying to address three questions. What changed? What changes make cities attractive to citizens? In 2020, with Glasgow as a base, University of Strathclyde and ETA set out this research to understand what makes a green city. And the research partners included major Scottish employers who looked beyond the pandemic to enable the principles for the modern functioning of the city hearts. And this is included in this research. The second question, will citizens buying the change in a greener city? So what we noticed is a shift to a hyper-local movement left Glasgow and many such similar cities financially exposed due to underutilized transit. Congestion growth is due to the drivers' long memories of inadequate transit experience. Demand for ride sharing is also increasing, and we also notice people wanting a change. A clean city, an end to congestion, air pollution, and recognition for cleaner choices. How can cities ensure citizens of climate security? We start with Glasgow City in accordance with the climate risk mitigation plan for UK City, and our research findings and services are addressing this question. In our journey to climate security, we analyze cities' behavior pattern using air quality data, weather data, events data, and other data, and combine them with the transit and the mobility data. In UK, 40% of GHG emissions are due to individual choices. Transport by nature involves discretionary choices as well as start and stop delays, which compounds when and how based on when and how the citizen chose to travel. So we noticed in our research, most of the city actions and impact on climate change were happening in silos. This is changing. Like post COVID, for example, planning officials and transport executives are drawn into public health and wider governance that were once very tangential to the provision of a road or mass transit. But policymakers and transit operators need tools to help drive these decisions better. And this is where we come in. When city level data are explored in silos, obviously we noticed data gaps. With this project, we developed an approach for collaboratively exploring city level net zero transitions through a system thinking lens. Doing this creates a ground for data democratization. All key stakeholders will have access to data in a meaningful form that that'll create a shared understanding between the key stakeholders driving the transition through the whole system. This will later inform the future policies, practices, and create a base for wider civic engagement, which is needed to drive the society. The result of this case study was a causal map for the city, a pattern for Glasgow City, creating measurable green city benefits, attractive green communities for major businesses and employers. A system thinking approach, creating a causal map for the city, helped us to connect the dots needed to solve the imputation of pollution up to a certain extent. At ETA, we help each stakeholder reduce their intent action gap by providing channels like Halo certification for business communities and for the policymakers, and ETA analytics and ETA community voice to help create the feedback mechanism required for the citizen, and ETA Unite to create measurable stats for attractive cities. Now, when we discuss specific to the mobility problem, that is where cities and government are exploring regulations to balance individual choices with GHG emission reduction, we have noticed that the number one obstacle to this change was transport users' perception. Our analysis of the data suggested that there is a disconnect between the metrics used by the transit operators and the citizens' motivation. Commuters trust perception over the operator's metrics and schedule. The other challenges which we noticed while analyzing the disconnect in the data was the hyperlocal challenge, that services were not economic to some location, creating a transport poverty zone. Or like the hyperconnectivity challenge, that is, users of multi-mode face inconvenient transit time, restricting employment choices for citizens. Or the hypersecurity challenge, which is policymakers relying on a very small sample set of less than 1,000 for policy and investment. That doesn't even sound just. Apart from this, we notice a lot of other we discovered a lot of other challenges specifically to Glasgow, like congestion charging doesn't work and is a high cost to commuters who most depend on the vehicles and who can least afford it. Poor street level charging infrastructure means EV are still unviable transport mode in Glasgow. Lack of encouragement to try environmentally friendly mode was another challenge that we know.
Just to let you know, 10 minutes before Q&A.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think I'm almost there, so it'll be done, and then we can continue with the Q&A. So how does ETA help in solving this? We use knowledge from our causal map to understand the mobility pattern and build a feedback mechanism which help to change the user's perception and also help transit operator to look at relevant valuable metrics. This creates a win-win-win situation for the city, the citizen, and the transit operators. So that was about how the research went through and how did we interpret the data from the research. And which leads me to another poll question. Go ahead and go to the poll page and feel free to write your answer. Like, what would most drive you to make sustainable choice in your lifestyle? A celebrity endorsement, the feeling of supporting the local community. C, environmental or city regulations forcing you to do so, or the monetary promotional benefit, or E, none of the above. I do see between E and support of the local community, it's like a balance, and I do see support of local community increasing. But interestingly, if you notice, the E section is big. So what changes, what influences the user citizens behavior, it is a little bit more complex, and understanding the city's rhythm is complex. Glasgow City is preparing for UN COP26 for November. It's UK's first city to accelerate carbon net zero 2030 with some of very clear objectives such as co-investment in green infrastructure, actions on economy, society, and environment, creating more continuous feedback between citizens, employees, and city. As you notice that not everything would not be clear. We saw very clear to understand the city's pattern. And Glasgow took close to 3.5 years to define a model, starting with a vision and a theory of change, and finally, at the end of it, creating a financial strategy to get the projects ready go. Thinking of cities with great climate risk, ETA set 3 goals in our data project. That is, one example that the available data of Glasgow trends indicating wider global relevance. Two, to draw out the transport data and insights about citizens ready for green choice. And three, to create tools necessary for cities to enable more feedback loop into the impact decisions. So using Glasgow Pattern, ETA has come up with ETA Unite, ETA Halo, and ETA Community Voice, which will be launched on November 26. So the impact of these are, Unite is, as we list here, Unite is understand, nurture, invested together, and empower. With cities at the risk of climate disaster, we need a rapid replication model, which made us abandon this consult and solve model to a more peer learning based on system thinking, allowing government to understand that what is happening in the system, the impact of the decision, and inform the public the impact of their choice. At Unite, we prioritize city attributes based on how they can be reused and repeated at other places, although separating them from the local nuances. For example, in Glasgow, the weather and climate is a unique factor. The wind, rain act as a natural antidote to mostly flush out some of the toxin. But however, congestion in central city is a common problem, which mostly peaks on certain pattern, and more than the GHG here is the the particle matter 2.5, PM10. They are the key problem makers, and especially at specific time frames. This allows us to map the congestion solutions for similar cities. The aim is to have set of guiding principles that we can overlay with other cities. We tag them as from a low unity to a high unity based on what the citizens and the local commuters strongly feel about, and which is mostly collected through, and this data is mostly collected through surveys and social medias. Halo certification, as the name suggests, is high ambition and low objections. So, system thinking is a key in all our researches. With the help of Halo certification, we start by providing Glasgow a medium to measure and evaluate business sustainability performance, especially in air quality. And citizens want greater engagement. What we have noticed is they want a greater engagement and with greater city attractors, but in a very orderly fashion. Halo certification helps city maintain that orderly fashion by identifying the attributes necessary to measure the same and encourage the communities to abide by them. We take the baseline of zero to high unity. In the end, the objective is to thin out city improvements and find those which are greatest appeal to the city's population. We are trying to close the intent action gap by making matrices used by transit operators to make it relevant to the consumer. In effect, trying to increase the consumer's willingness to make a greener choice. So, for example, in Glasgow, there are a small number of reference air quality meters to approximately 270, and rest is done by modeling. So the air quality, and there is a lot of variety among how it is done in a single city. So ETA certification helps, and the modus operandi will work as a lift up tool and create this feedback in the system, ensuring that the businesses abide by the air quality certification that is required for the city. ETA community voice. So here we help to identify and create a feedback loop required to empower the citizen and ways to democratize the data for all stakeholders to create a perception change required for the citizen. We help them mobilize the behavioral change required by creating feedback loop. For example, in Glasgow, the subsidies paid to transit operators increased to provide essential services during pandemic. Insight from customers can help redesign the services to meet the value expectation. So community voice creates this necessary feedback loop to reach out to citizen on, like an example that you see here, on their device through application of their choice, and combining recommendation and royalty rebate system, which will in order to help which will help to match the capacity with the demand. The payback to cities in this case is that subsidies are managed down. So again, it's a win-win situation for the transit operators, citizens, and city. We are complying with C40 UN PRI reporting standards and the race to resilience and a funding ready scenario with a high confidence in community and co-investor backing. So with that, that brings me to the end of this presentation. Feel free to contact me with LinkedIn. My Hopin profile has the LinkedIn, it's connected to my LinkedIn profile. And for any information, further information on ET or a discovery call, you can drop in a mail to Keerthi at enjoytheair.earth or to Kate, our director, Kate at enjoytheair.earth. Before we move forward to the question answer, I would like to end it with a quote of the famous teen activist. The first thing I have learned is that you are never too small to make a difference. So make your voice heard on climate action. And now I'm up for any questions that I can take. And a big shout out to Eli Murli and volunteers of LA DataCon. Thanks for making this happen. Looking forward to seeing them next year too.
Thank you,
So,
Keerthi.
so please feel free to put your Q&A into the Q&A box on the last tab of your session. I have a question. How long has ETA been around, and how long has it taken you to develop such a relationship with Glasgow?
So we are so strategically placed. We are actually, the directors are placed in 2 continents, and we have our presence in right now UK, Australia, and I am the US arm. But we have the connections, university connections already made with our research associates. So the research has been going on, and the report findings have to be finalized by now, the November end. It all started at early 2020. So we are pretty new in this area.
That's
We are
very
learning
new.
fast.
You've done a substantial amount in a short time. That's good. So we have a question. Did other UK cities model after Glasgow? If so, are there data yet?
So that's a nice question. We are hoping that the cities model after Glasgow after November 26. There is no substantial data yet, but as I said, November is when at the COP26 is when we are trying to launch it. So show the results of how and what the findings have been, and the partnerships we have generated. It's on the last leg of it. So post then we are hoping that UK cities and hopefully even US cities, because I do see Irvine is the city, the first LA city, hopefully to reach, who has pledged for 2050 net zero. So hopefully we'll we want to create this model so that cities learn from each other, that learning experiences happen. Yes. So to your question again, there's no data yet, but hopefully post November there will be.
A few more questions or statements. LA is also net zero by 2030? Question mark. Can LA and Glasgow learn from each other for such an early goal?
Yeah, I believe Irvine city of LA has pledged for net zero by 2030. I'm sorry, I'm not that updated, but the goal of ETA is creating this pattern based, the research based on the city's pattern. So obviously, hopefully, there will be more such city patterns from our Unite, which will be useful for each cities. And so I'm hoping that we learn from each city, learn from others. So hopefully, LA cities can also, there will be results from this research that will be helpful for LA city.
Meanwhile, Keerthi, this is Murli. I have a question. What's the main funding source for ETA?
So we have multiple funding sources. We have the funds from university. We have some co-investor backing also right now. Unfortunately I do not have the whole information right now to list down, but I can always bring you back with that information.
No. In general, means again, I don't need all the investors. I'm just saying, this is something I believe in. This is something I totally advocate for. I just want to know, such a great initiative has to be strongly funded.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say it, but money does make things reach to more people. So that's where my question is. I have a question from Akiva Jesselson. Where can you read more about Glasgow method, and is ETA part of UK government?
So ETA part, I would say ETA is a limited corporation, but how we are placed as our stakeholders of the products and services which we are offering would have the local policy makers or the governments as one of the stakeholders. So it'll also the benefit them, the transit. As of now, we are focusing first on the transit sector. So the transit operators, we have built certain partnership with major transit operators. So that will be one of our stakeholder, and the end customer, the transit users would be the citizens. To read more about this, you can obviously start with enjoytheair.earth. That is our website, and we'll have more marketing elements and more marketing banners towards the end of November 22.
I work for LA Met.
LinkedIn page, we'll keep it updated.
Sure. Yeah, I work for Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority, probably the second largest transit in the United States. And we do have a pledge to convert all our buses to electric buses by year 2030.
That's excellent, Murli. I think it would not be a discussion that I can have right now in this forum, but I would really love to have maybe set up a discovery call or have some call with our director. So if there is some information or that we can offer or see where if there is a partnership that we can go ahead with, or any information that will be great, because it's
Sure.
all about, so one thing about climate change, I feel it's a very borderless revolution. So
Mhm.
the more borderless it is, people can learn from the resilience and exchange experience, and the impact becomes easier.
Fair
So
enough. You can reach out to me. I have
yes.
a personal question.
Mhm.
Uh, how did this whole ETA or the climate change resonate with you? You're fairly young, and you could have, you're in the tech industry. You could have gone to anywhere in the tech industry. How did this attract you? I'm glad you're doing this, but how did you come to this?
So I am a passionate sustainability advocate,
Mm.
but it was mostly in my. This is such an interesting question, Willie. So I'm taking my time to answer this. Mostly, it was in my personal space that I was trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
When I had my toddler, I started rethinking about, there's so much you can do in your personal space, but if you take it a level higher, maybe you can drive your passion to make that impact for others. So that's the reason I'm trying to focus more on working at this intersection. And
Mm-hmm.
see, it is an easy transition for me to move to a tech company because
Mm-hmm.
of my background. This is a learning curve for me, but I'm actually enjoying it because this is something I'm passionate about. I believe in it. So I hope that'll help me bring the company's vision also to life. So,
Always when that's the sweet spot, right? When passion meets
right.
profession.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the ikigai.
Yeah, so that's always good. No, good to know because as I said, right, this is a very I see these discussions on political fronts as an agenda item, but not really somebody like you coming in and telling us, hey, this is what Enjoy the Air does. This is which we are already doing. The initiative is here. This is how we are associating with different countries, different agencies, and there is an end goal.
Yeah.
So that is this is something first time I'm hearing, because otherwise there's a lot of political noise around it, which obviously makes you disinterested.
You
So
exactly nailed the point, Murli. That's the whole base of our research, that we found that there's a lot of media noise out there, but less of that feedback loop. So we need more of the tools and loops to ensure that things are done.
mhm.
So and there is, and that's like I said in my presentation, that's mostly because of a disconnect between the matrices in a very engineer terms, but that was the reason that we were able to identify.
Thank you, Eli. Yeah, I think we're done with questions. You take it over, sir.
All right. Let me present myself. Uh, so thank you, Keerthi, for your presentation and the attendees for the questions and interactions. You can contact the speaker directly if there are any further questions regarding this topic. Please provide your feedback using the form that we provided in the chat box. Thank you again, everyone, for joining today's presentation, and I hope you have gained some insights from this session. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for being a part of this year's DataCon LA. Thank you again, Keerthi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirti. Thank you,
Thank you.
Eli.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.